Hello, iron sharpens iron, family and friends. This is Trey, and I'm going to bring to you today two of some of the most intriguing people, well, in my opinion, some of the most intriguing people in the public eye today. On the left there, you see Mr. Yang. He is running for president. So he has a lot of interesting things to say, and many people like his ideas because it sounds good. But what we're going to do today is we're going to read in between the lines. I'm going to share with you who these people really are. The other guy there on the right is Mr. Ben Shapiro. Mr. Ben Shapiro and Mr. Yang both attended law school, but decided that law was not for them at some point, and basically now they have become economists. So when we learn government, something that we do not learn, or at least not that I recall in school, is about economy and economists. So when we think about who's running the show behind the scenes, these two gentlemen here represent a big portion of that. And it's important to understand as we learn government to know how we have come to this big government federalism society today and why it works the way it works. And these gentlemen have a long 2-hour conversation, I think it is, going on here. So I'm not going to play the whole video, but there was a specific part of the video I wanted you to hear so that you can have a thorough understanding about who's running your country, what they think of you individually and as a class of persons in comparison to how they view themselves. So pay close attention to what these gentlemen say. And I highly recommend that after watching this video, you go ahead and take the time not only to listen to what they're pitching, but slow it down and think thoroughly about what it is they're trying to accomplish, trying to impose on the community's views and thought process. So I'm bringing this up because I believe it is highly important for us to understand that these kinds of gentlemen here represent the people that sit on our committees that help to push legislation. And, in my state alone last year, there were 2,000 new pieces of legislation passed. So this is the really major amounts of regulations that are getting pushed is generally not about an individual or how to protect individuals' rights. What it's all about really is economic sustainability. So all these different pieces of legislations really don't have anything to do with how much your government's trying to protect you or help you out. It has more to do with data research to figure out how you can help them out. And this really is a great representation to explain how that kind of works. So just to give you a general overview of the conversation here, Mr. Yang, in his ambitions to run for president, is an entrepreneur. He's, opened his own businesses and pats himself on the back because during the time that he had opened these businesses, he created jobs for communities, and he is in high regard of that for being a hero because, those jobs wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for Mr. Yang. He discusses the future of automation. So as we move forward through technology, he is predicting that many laborers will be losing their jobs soon because of automation and technology. So because of that reason, he proposes that the government provide a $1,000 dividend per person in the United States, not to be confused with a government program or entitlement, but this, what he's speaking of, is a dividend. And it's important to understand because what he's saying is that the United States has earned so much money in their capitalist state that the people who have invested their time and labor should get a dividend, because if it wasn't for those people helping the government to build up to the status that they are today, being the richest nation, so forth and so on, that it wouldn't have happened for us. So because we've all participated and contributed to this growth of our nation, we should all receive a dividend for those investments. Well, Mr. Yang, I say we should have always been receiving a dividend, considering the fact that we have always helped the nation to grow. It doesn't matter what chain, what step on the ladder you're in. What matters is the fact that you have provided equal time, energy, and effort. Now, what he isn't telling you is that they determine how much your time is valued at, and then they determine how much their time is valued at. And it always ends up that their time is much more valuable and marketable, and that because of what they do for a living, their contributions to the economic sustainability of our nation are far better than yours. Now, you gotta love that. So I'm gonna play to give you this particular clip in this video to give you a real inside view of how to read in between the lines when you hear one of these people speaking. We'll go through that, and then we'll come back and I'll explain how it works.
What you call human capitalism, the idea of changing our notion of capitalism, where essentially it changes how we see the market. You say human capitalism would have a few core tenets. One, humanity is more important than money. Two, the unit of an economy is each person, not each dollar. And three, markets exist to serve our common goals and values. Well, on sort of an abstract, in a vacuum, I agree with a lot of that stuff, obviously. I mean, I have kids, I have parents, right? Humans matter more than money. And if you ask me to sell my child, obviously the answer is no. I like my kids. So although it depends on the day. If you're asking, the units of an economy, dollars versus people, there I start to have a little more trouble just on the economic level, because what I'm actually paying for is a skill set, not a person. Obviously, the value of each.
What I'm actually paying for is a skill set, not a person.
Human being is infinite, but the value of each human being's labor is certainly not. And then when you say markets exist to serve our common goals and values, this is what it's really interesting, because as I mentioned Tucker, because I think that you money, and if you ask me to sell my child, obviously the answer is no. I like my kids, so although it depends on the day. If you're asking, the units of an economy, dollars versus people, there I start to have a little more trouble just on the economic level, because what I'm actually paying for is a skill set, not a person. Obviously, the value of each human being is infinite, but the value of each human being's labor is certainly not. And then when you say markets exist to serve our common goals and values, this is what it's really interesting, because as I mentioned Tucker, because I think that you and Tucker Carlson are on the same page with regard to some of this stuff, so is Bernie Sanders for that matter. The idea that markets exist to serve people, I think, is something with which I disagree, and I'll explain. When we talk about markets, my view of a market is essentially a recognition that my labor belongs to me. A free market is just my labor belongs to me, in the same way that
my labor belongs to me. So this is really significant for you to understand what he's saying here. My labor belongs to me. So every person has what he calls a skill set, or whatever it is you choose to do in this world to contribute to the economic growth of your communities. And because your labor belongs to you, it is therefore your property. Okay? You can choose when you will give that labor to someone else in exchange for something of value. And these types of gentlemen here determine what exactly your labor is valued at. So if you work at, say, Walmart or McDonald's or one of the places that typically pay a minimum wage, it is these types of gentlemen who determine that you taking 8 hours of your day to show up somewhere, leaving your family, and giving a service to the corporation in exchange for cash, that particular value of your time is less valuable than theirs. As a matter of fact, it's less valuable than every senator, congressman, police officer, and anyone basically who works in government, because every single one of them gets a big, fat, juicy pension, and typically they get multiple pensions. So clearly, when they leave their families for 8 hours a day and do their jobs, it is much more of a valued person than you or me. And it is especially more valuable to the economy where the persons have put into college education and earned their degree. I find that to be very interesting, but let's continue.
free speech is my viewpoint belongs to me. You can't say that the markets exist to serve our common goals any more than you say that free speech exists to serve our common goals. Free speech is just a recognition that I, as an individual human being, have worth. And so free markets are the same thing. It's a recognition that I, as an individual human being, my labor has worth. So,
and his labor has more worth than your labor. That guy right there. What do you think about that? So when he gets on his little television show and, you know, talks about all the knowledge he has, is that knowledge that he has more valuable in lifestyle than you? So these gentlemen likely live in mansions with swimming pools, huge amounts of money coming in, so forth and so on. And being entrepreneurs, I'm sure that they feel that that is logical and fair and whatever else. But in the end, he donates 8 hours a day of his time. You know, some people maybe 15, 16 hours, but either way you slice it, whether it's me donating that amount of time or him donating that amount of time to our economic stability, why does he feel a sense of self-entitlement as to how much he's valued at versus how much I would be valued at? I find that very intriguing, very revealing.
So the idea that the market is just something that is an institution that we have come up with together and that we play with, I'm not sure that's an accurate description of what markets actually represent. There's an underlying value to human labor that is not just a common system we all decided to come up with one day. It's just a recognition that I can alienate my labor and you can buy my labor. Is that wrong?
Well, so to me, the fundamental shift that we have to start getting our arms around is that certain people's labor is not going to be worth enough for them to make the kind of living that is required for them to live what they would consider a good life. And so if you look at truck drivers as an example, because I use them because they're the most clear. So you have 3.5 million truckers making about $46,000 a year. And that it's a punishing job. They're behind the wheel of this truck for up to 14 hours a day. They're away from their families 4 days a week. And the rest.
A punishing job, and how long are they away from their families? Far less valuable, far less worthy of a decent lifestyle than these two gentlemen sitting here in their cushy, warm jobs where they get to stay with their families. But the trucker, grueling hours, grueling labor, and that guy, well, he's just not worthy of having all the luxuries in life that these gentlemen do. It's up to you to decide.
But their market value, the market of their time behind, it's about $46,000. Now, if 5 to 10 years from now, my friends in Silicon Valley with trucks that can largely drive themselves, and then we're going to go to that truck driver and say, hey, turns out your market value, like your time behind the wheel, not 46,000. It's 26. It's 0. It's like, whatever the number is. And so there's like a change building up in our economy that the freedom to trade your labor for money to make a good living for yourself, that's actually going to end up breaking down in more and more situations where that truck driver is no less willing to trade his time. I mean, he still wants to do it. But then the freight company is going to be like, turns out your time's not worth what it was.
Trade your time and your labor. What are you trading it for? Well, most people think you're trading it for cash. Well, cash has no value. Go ahead, check out the Treasury website and you'll see it's valueless. It's really just a medium of exchange. So if you remove the cash from the equation, pretend that you were just volunteering your time to grow the economy in your community as a participant in that community. And the community in exchange will provide you with the basics, a house, a car, some basic necessities of life. If you're a truck driver, as this man is saying, and you were just bartering that time and you didn't receive any cash dollars, then the community would decide what your house is going to look like in comparison to what his house is going to look like. So what he's saying and what they are saying, the way it really works, is that based on your contribution to the community, we don't believe you deserve a lavish lifestyle like Mr. Yang here. We don't believe your contribution was as valuable as his. We don't believe your worth is as high as his as far as being a part of the community. We feel it's far less. So we will give you your basic little shack of a house. Maybe it's run down, maybe it's fallen apart. You'll have to put additional labor into it to fix it up because, again, you have to contribute to your community in order to make sure that house remains clean and pretty so that it maintains its market value for the community so that Mr. Yang here can give himself a pat on the back and talk about his economic contributions and providing jobs to the community was so much worth his lavish lifestyle. These are the parts they don't tell you about. You gotta love it. It sounds so good though. I'm gonna give you each $1,000 a month and you're gonna love me. Really, Mr. Yang? Really, I don't think so.
It's not just a trucker. It could be a radiologist who makes hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they interpret radiation films. Say, I'm very willing to do this. Like, I like getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. Then we say, hey, turns out that AI can see tumors you can't. Can refer to millions of films, not thousands. Can see shades of gray that are invisible to the human eye. You lose. Like your time all of a sudden goes from worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to, let's call it,
Do you know where Mr. Shapiro and Mr. Yang might lose? What would really, really hurt their feelings is if we had independent markets, small markets. If each individual in a community played a role, not where they worked for a large corporation and donated some of their labor in exchange for that worth he's talking about, but if everybody just pitched in to have their own businesses, if Walmart didn't exist and Tom and Joe and Mary each had small shops where they would sell you consumer goods such as toilet paper and shampoo and groceries, and each of those individual businesses operated based off of the community trust and communications. Mr. Yang would then be out of a job, just like he's saying about the truckers. Mr. Shapiro would be out of a job, just like he's engaged in this conversation with Mr. Yang about worth and value, because there would be no need for them now, would there? We would have no need for economists to tell us how we need to contribute or donate our indentured servitude to the corporations these entrepreneurs have basically monopolized. But he sounds like such a nice guy. Isn't he so charming? Let me give you each $1,000.
half that or zero, whatever the number is. And so I think that it worked for a long time when the average American would show up and say, if I really work hard, I've got a strong back, like, I can make a decent living for myself. And like it was in the 70s where if I showed up even in manufacturing, like I may be able to provide a middle class life for myself and my family. But
you know why that worked, Mr. Yang? It worked because manufacturer companies were typically owned by smaller families. They were broken down into several different competitive markets. And today what we have are acquisition companies that absorb all of those little mom and pops so that they no longer exist. So no matter where you're buying your goods from, it may have a different name on it, but ultimately all of those different manufacturing companies are under the same thumb or the same trust corporation. And all the same people in the investment of said trust corporation earn all the dividends into their own pockets, as opposed to mom and pops earning that money to support their families. See, these people, being a part of a community, have a connection with said community. So they would be more likely to provide a higher wage to their workers because they would have appreciation for them, because they have compassion and empathy for their fellow neighbor, which is what we do not have anymore because these corporations are so big. We don't know who owns them, so we have no trust in them. We have no relationship with them, and we could care less about them. We just need to go purchase our goods. But on the other side of things, if you're dealing with a large corporation such as Walmart, they don't care about you either, as they know that there is nobody else, no other competitor in the community from which you can purchase from. So why should they care about you? Because you not liking them, you not liking the wages they're providing, has no effect on their bottom line, because they're the only ones offering all the products under the sun.
Then if that stops working, then you need to start thinking differently about how the labor market functions.
So if we move beyond sort of the concept of free markets as places where we can alienate labor because some people are not capable of alienating their labor is not worth anything, then is the idea that the collective owns the labor of everybody and gets to redistribute the products of that labor? Is that what we're talking about here? Because it gets into dicey territory.
No, and I agree with that. And that's actually the outcome we have to avoid, that if at all possible. And this is one reason why my flagship proposal is we give every American $1,000 a month free and clear, and that doesn't somehow usurp your labor, your time. That actually, if anything, liberates your labor, your time.
It liberates. You know what would be liberating, Mr. Yang? What would be liberating is if I could go down to the local empty building, which there are many now, commercial rental spaces. If I could go there and put up a sign and just open up shop without your people bothering me, and I could just sell some products and goods, that would be something, wouldn't it? That's how it used to be. You know, if you'd ever been raised in an area, like an inner city area, specifically in Chicago, there were people that we would see that we knew who lived on our blocks, and we would see them for the goods that we wanted or needed. And we would know them by name, and they would know us by name. And they would support their families, and we could appreciate that. And in turn, they would hire some of the people from the blocks, and then those people could support their families. And when there was trouble amongst anybody, if anyone was having a hard time, they would just come together and help each other out. What a concept. Now, that would be something to see again someday, wouldn't it?
That if you have a little bit more freedom from scarcity, then you can start making moves towards the sort of work that you want for yourself, that you value, that you find fulfilling.
So one of the things that you talk about, and I think this is interesting because you are obviously a big believer in the ability of people to make choices with their own money, and this is why you believe in the freedom dividend is the idea. I'm giving you the cash, which is your decision what to do with it. Yeah. At one point in the book, you talk about the idea that folks who are poorer in the United States are actually good with money, that essentially that they are going to be responsible with the money that they have. You say on page 185, the idea that poor people will be irresponsible with their money and squander it seems to be a product of deep-seated biases rather than emblematic of the truth. And you do this in sort of broader attack on the meritocratic idea, in which you say, well, this isn't completely a meritocracy. Obviously, there's some people who are born in situations they can't control. You don't always control your own level of merit. That's sort of a meritocratic myth. And this is a position that's held by people, including Ross Douthat, who's sort of a more populist conservative at the New York Times. I wonder, however, if that's true. And the reason that I say that is because if you look at the spending habits of people who are lower down on the income chain, those spending habits don't tend to be more frugal than people who are at the upper levels of the income chain, at least not until those people at the upper levels are pretty secure in being at the upper levels.
So people on the lower levels aren't really showing financial responsibility and good investment skills because you know why? We don't have law degrees. Sir, we don't have law degrees, Mr. Shapiro, like you do. And because of all the red tape and regulation that has been established to set up our own businesses of our own desire and free will, has been very, very regulated in a way that makes it extraordinarily difficult and high risk for someone who wasn't born of your statute. And that makes it very difficult for any average Joe to ever have opportunity by which he might have been able to establish a good financial and sustainable business and family economy. This is not really a doable thing these days. Go ahead, try to figure out how to open up a corporation. There's so much red tape involved. You have to invest a ton more money just to open it up, because you're going to have to pay an attorney just to get through all this red tape. But this is great for these people. This is fantastic, because as long as you have a need for an attorney, then they will always rule it. There's no way around it. If it were simple free markets where I could just go establish my business and roll the dice, see if it works, see if it doesn't, everything would be fine. There would be ins and outs for every person, at least to try to establish a better ecosystem for themselves and their communities. But this is not an option, and they know it. They went to law school, remember, so they know that the average Joe trying to overcome all the hurdles in opening up their own business is dang near impossible. But, nice call there, buddy.
You see conspicuous consumption among people who are earning insane amounts of money because they can afford it. But the way that those people largely became people who can afford to do that is a certain level of frugality. I take, for example, the buying of lottery tickets. So the lowest income households in the United States, on average, spend $412 annually on lottery tickets, almost 3 in 10.
So lottery tickets, really? All right, so instead of looking at what anyone does outside of that scope with their money, most people are buying lottery tickets because they're hopeful and they're hoping something's going to happen, but I don't think it's going to be all of their income. But let's listen in.
And Americans in the lowest income bracket play the lottery once a week. Now, we know statistically it's flushing your money down the toilet. It's a complete waste of time. There's no reason to do that. And I understand people do this out of despair, but that doesn't change the economic truth, which is that people may not make good decisions with their money, which is one of the reasons we have programs like Social Security. We don't trust you to keep your own money and put it.
That's my favorite part of everything he says throughout this entire show. Let's listen to that again. Let this sink in real quick.
In the United States, on average, spend $412 annually on lottery tickets. Almost 3 in 10 Americans in the lowest income bracket play the lottery once a week. Now, we know just statistically it's flushing your money down the toilet. It's a complete waste of time. There's no reason to do that. And I understand that people do this out of despair, but that doesn't change the economic truth, which is that people may not make good decisions with their money, which is one of the reasons we have programs like Social Security. We don't trust you to keep your own money and put.
We don't trust you. We don't trust. Who the hell are you, Mr. Shapiro? Who cares who you are, as a matter of fact? But what he's saying isn't just his opinion. It is the opinion of all the so-called government services that are designed to help people, but we don't want to help you without watching every move you make and making sure that we can regulate every step you take in order to assure that you do the right things, because we don't trust you. How about this? I don't trust you, Mr. Shapiro or Mr. Yang. How about we don't trust all the people sitting in their stools up in government, allowing for themselves to be valued at a higher worth than the very people they proclaim to serve? I find that really interesting. So if we are going to have some sort of mistrust amongst us, then how about we just separate from here? There's no reason. If you don't trust me and I don't trust you, then why do we do business at all? Seems to me that it should be more independent. We should be able to, as I said before, open up our own independent businesses without all the red tape. There's no need for it. I don't need your trust to try to start a business. Whether it fails or it succeeds is irrelevant. The cost of opening a business has become so high, and then you need to take a loan. So if you wanted to open your business, you have to hire the attorneys to get you through the hurdles and the red tapes. You have to hire a bank now to service a loan. And now you find yourself in such extreme debt that the business may end up failing. And now we put the banks at risk, and the banks lose the money because your business failed. Well, how about we cut out all the middlemen? If the cost of doing business was significantly reduced, we wouldn't need the loan, would we? But that might hurt the feelings of your fellow college graduating communities, because that's who these people are. They're buddies, they're pals, they're a lot in common with each other that makes them feel that they are superior to everyone else. And in that process, what has occurred is we fell asleep at the wheel as the people. So now we have this dependency upon gentlemen who feel this way about you and me and our families and our children. And again, I recommend that you watch this whole thing, because what you'll find is in the beginning stages, if you're not keeping your ears open and using them to hear, you find like Mr. Yang to be highly charming. He seems so compassionate and so caring about, oh, these people, they're going to lose their jobs, and we have to, look into the future and prevent them from losing their worth. And let's, figure out a way to stop this from happening before it happens. And that sounds so charming and so good. But again, it's not about what they're saying. It's about what they're not saying. So in understanding how the economic sustainability of a nation works from this big government viewpoint is grotesque. And it's grotesque because once all of these larger corporations who have the money and funding to cut out every other person from the opportunities, we now have ourselves monopolized industries where all we can do is indentured servitude. There is no opportunity for independence and self-growth and self-reliance. And then because those opportunities cease to exist, these people have the audacity to say that we don't know what we're doing to sustain ourselves financially. I'm offended. I don't know. Maybe you are, maybe you're not, but I'm pretty offended by it. So just wanted to give you a way to see what these people are thinking at the top chains. These are the people that sit on committees and such that move legislation. And you want to think about, is this who you want sitting in those committees making these financial and economical decisions for all of the people? Seemingly, to me, it seems that they're making the best decisions, not on behalf of all of the people, but on behalf of the professional community by which they are all partaking in. So I don't know, that's up to you to decide. Again, watch the video, see if you can catch some of the omissions in what they're saying. And again, although it seems to be so kind and generous for them to offer us $1,000 dividend, well, in order to take that and like it, you would also have to admit that you are a less valuable human being than the gentleman sitting here, and that you have less worth, and that your children have less worth than the gentleman sitting here and the ones like them sitting in the committees. That's up to you to decide, not me, but just a little inside view of who is running the show behind the scenes and what they're thinking really versus what they're saying out loud. And if you have any comments, go ahead, put them in the section below, click the bell so you get notified when we do other videos. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. We're going to get more into how the government works behind the scenes so that you can learn government along with me and get better at understanding why things are so difficult today. There's a lot more to come, my friends, a lot more to come. I'm going to teach you everything I know and probably everything I'm going to learn in the future, because it never ends. Well, we constantly learn. I don't know everything, and I'll constantly learn more as I go along, and I'll keep sharing as long as you keep liking. So make sure you like the videos and have a great day.